What's up and welcome back to the channel. It's High Kingdom Foundation. If you guys are wanting to know the difference between a Rottweiler and an American Bulldog, this video is for you. Today I'm going to be sharing with you guys the differences between Rottweilers and American Bulldogs. I've had them each for about 3 or 4 years now, and I have experience handling them, training them, and also breeding them. So I'm going to be sharing with you everything that I've learned about both the breeds. Now, if these are two breeds that you're considering buying, or these are two breeds that are on the top 10 list for you, then I would highly encourage watching this video all the way through, just so you don't miss any important facts about either of the breeds. So we're going to start off with the history of the breeds. Let's start off with the Rottweiler. The Rottweiler comes from ancient Rome. Now, around 74 AD is the first mentioning of the Rottweiler, and they helped out with the Roman soldiers. They would protect the people. They would also drive the livestock, and they would also get the name of the butcher dog. And they got this name from carrying carts of meat around from town to town wherever they needed to go. And that's actually why you have the Rottweiler with the docked tail, is because they didn't want the tail interfering with the cart. So that's originally why they docked the Rottweiler's tail. Now later, around the 1500s, these dogs ended up in Germany, and that's who actually perfected the breed, and that's what you see today as the modern day Rottweiler, is what Germany did with the breed. And they've been there ever since. Again, personal protection dogs, farming dogs, farm utility dogs, driving dogs, livestock dogs, and they were a multi-purpose dog for the Germans, and they still are today. Let's go into the Bulldog. The American Bulldogs, the first mentioning of Bulldogs comes from England, and they accompanied the first immigrants and the colonists to the United States of America. And when they came to this country, they were used as bull baiting dogs, they were used as farm dogs, and also hog catching dogs. And around the 1800s is when this dog started to die down in popularity, because bull baiting started to die down in popularity. And when that happened, the farmers in the American South helped to preserve this breed, keeping them as livestock dogs, catch dogs, and overall farm protection dogs. So stemming from the American South, two people helped create the American Bulldog breed. That's John D. Johnson and Alan Scott. And that's where you get the two different types of American Bulldogs, which I could probably make a whole YouTube video on just in itself. So it's going to be a little bit difficult for me to compare the Rottweiler to the American Bulldog, because within the American Bulldog breed, you have a huge wide range of different types of dogs. And within that wide range, you have different phenotypes, different physical attributes, different mental attributes, temperaments, and so forth. So the American Bulldog breed can range way more drastically than the Rottweiler can. So from the Johnson bloodlines, you get the Bully classic type. Those are the big, heavier boned, bigger dogs with big heads. They have a little bit more smushed in face, and they're a little bit less athletic of a breed, but they can still be capable of working as long as they were bred correctly. Today you see the Bully classic type, not much of a working dog. You see dogs that are 26 inches at the withers, 150 pounds. And you see Bully dogs that are 18 inches at the withers and 80 pounds that really are good for nothing, except looking good. And some of them do look pretty cool. But the bigger Johnson dogs are going to be more of a versatile breed, and that's personally what I like. I like a little bit of leg on a Bully dog. And then you got your standard type, which comes from Alan Scott. Your standard or performance type. This is more of a game bred working dog. These dogs can catch hogs. They're better workers. They're better on farms, and they breathe a whole lot better, and they're just more athletic. So you have that type of American Bulldog as well, and you have everything in between. You know, people cross the Bully types to the standard types, and you create any type of Bulldog that you really want. So speaking of that, I guess we'll get into the size of each breed. We'll start with the Bulldogs. With the size, again, the Bully type, typically 22 inches at the withers to 25 inches at the withers, and that could vary given an inch or two at the withers, and anywhere probably from 80 pounds to 120 pounds typically. Again, those weights can go outside of that weight range, but that's typically what you see the Bulldogs at. Females are going to be a little shorter and a little lighter. And with the Rottweilers, you're going to see a range that is way more compact and way more common within the breed, and that's Males about 25 to 27 inches at the withers, anywhere from 100 to 135 pounds, and females again a little bit lighter, a little bit shorter. The appearances of the dogs, you got the bulldogs. They can range from a very wide variety of different colors. Most of them are going to have some sort of base white color, and then you're going to have anywhere from black brindle, blue brindle, chocolate brindle. You're going to have solid chocolate, solid black, even lilac sometimes, blue sometimes. And technically this isn't within the standard of the American Bulldog, but I will say that American Bulldog breeders don't stick to the standard that was written by it anywhere close to how much the Rottweiler breeders stick to the standard of the Rottweiler. So Bulldog breeders have a little bit more of a free-for-all, it seems, within the breed. I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing, it just kind of is what it is within the breed. For an example, within the American Bulldog standard, it says the dog should be a strong, athletic, robust dog showing great endurance and strength, and you don't see a lot of dogs resembling that. You don't see a lot of dogs resembling the color markings, which I think the physical description of the dog is more important than the color markings of the dog. I think it should be able to work and have a job, and you shouldn't have to keep it in air conditioning its whole life so it doesn't die. And with the Rottweilers, the appearance, black and tan, black and mahogany, with the typical markings that a Rottweiler has. If it doesn't have that, then it's considered a mutt. Any white on its chest or any white on it is a disqualification when it comes to identifying a purebred Rottweiler. So if we want to get into the temperaments of the two different breeds, like I said, it can range very drastically depending on the bloodlines of the American Bulldogs that you get. But American Bulldogs are very playful, they're very loyal, they're very loving, and it's a very versatile breed. And they have pretty good guarding instincts depending on the bloodlines that you get. Some of them are better than others. Some of them, the bullier lines that you're going to get are going to be more lazy. They're going to be a little bit more chill. They're going to be more reserved for the most part. They could still have drive to them and, you know, want to do certain tasks and play and do things like that. That's if their breathing lets them. Well, sometimes the breathing doesn't let them, but they still have the drive, and you know, it's like a self-destruction thing that they have. But most of the time, a bullier dog is going to be a little bit calmer, a little bit more relaxed, less energy, and it's going to be a great loyal friend for you. The standard American Bulldogs are going to be more fiery. They're going to have more drive to them, probably more protection instincts as well. And you can train them to do about anything. They're a great working breed. They love to please their owners. They love to work. So they're a more serious dog when it comes to the American Bulldogs, in my opinion. My male Goose, he is a mix of the two. He's mostly bully. We like to call him a performance bully type. He does have standard blood in him, but he's mostly classic blood. But he's a little bit more cut up, shredded, athletic, and he's more of a serious dog than most of my bully dogs. So he likes to work. I can run with him. I can run miles with him, 3-4 miles. He can run pretty much no problem. He's not a perfect breather, but he's really, really close to being perfect. You don't really hear any snorting or any rough breathing from him, and he's hard as a rock when you pat him, when you know, smack him on the butt, smack him on the ribs. You know, he's a very solid, strong dog with tight skin and really tight muscle. So I'm really pleased with how he turned out. I like to breed him to bullier females, so I can have somewhat of a hybrid type of look, but somewhere in the middle. I don't want too sloppy of a dog, and I like tight skin and tight structure, but I also want bone and head and size. So that's the goals that I'm trying to make with my Bulldogs. With Rottweilers, their temperaments are a little bit more serious than the wide variety of the American Bulldogs. They take their guarding instincts a little bit more serious. They take their guarding job a little bit more serious. With my experience with the Rottweilers, they'll lay strategically in the yard in places so they can oversee the whole entire yard. They're more on the lookout. They're kind of always watching and scanning and surveying the lawn and the yard, versus the Bulldogs that I think are kind of more in their own world and just like to play and have a good time most of the time. And the Rottweilers, they take their job seriously. If somebody comes onto my property unannounced or surprises them, they're definitely quick to respond. My female Mercy was great with that. You know, she'll charge somebody as soon as she sees them at my fence, which I personally loved. But she was also a sweetheart, and you know, if you're with me, the dogs have good discernment and they can tell that you're not a threat at the time, and they're not going to aggressively attack. But if you do come on to my property, or they see a fox or a coyote or something, they're definitely going to alert me and protect the property. Another thing that I think a lot of people would want to know, as I wanted to know, and maybe you would like to know as well, is if these dogs are good with families, if they're good with kids. And I made a video on the Rottweiler, and I explained that they certainly can be good with kids, but there are times when Rottweilers are not that great with kids. And I've never seen it, but I've heard about it, and I'm sure that it's happened with the American Bulldogs as well. But I'll be honest with you, I think you have a higher chance of getting a Rottweiler that isn't the best family dog than an American Bulldog. I think an American Bulldog, for the most part, you're going to get a really good family dog. It might lack a little bit more guarding, protective instincts than a Rottweiler does, but I think it's a safer bet when it comes to family and kids. But my Rottweilers are great with my kids. Kerjack is great with my kids. So for me, either one of them does great, but I think it just depends on the bloodline that you get. And as you guys probably know, raising a puppy with your kids is one of the best things to do for your puppy. Getting them socialized with your kids and familiar with them. It might be a little bit rough at first with the puppy biting and stuff like that, but keep a very close eye on it, and just make sure that your dog doesn't show any bad warning signs, any red flags that might indicate that your dog's not safe to be with your kids. I think a lot of tragedies could have been preventable if they didn't have too much faith and trust in their dog and ignoring red flags. If your dog shows any type of aggression, any type of resource guarding, whether it's food or the toys, and it might snap at your kids, and you leave your kids alone with that dog, then that's nothing but on you. You have to see the dog as a dog. Yes, it could be part of your family, but at the same time, it stems from apex predator genetics. So you have to realize that it's an animal, and they can be unpredictable at times. But obviously, if we train these dogs right, we get it from stable bloodlines, we can almost guarantee that these dogs can be great family pets and protect us and be an asset to our life, protecting our land, protecting our property, and being a great best friend for our kids and our family. The health of the breeds can also range drastically depending on the bloodline. Some bloodlines are more prone to certain things, especially with the Bulldogs. Certain bloodlines have terrible breathing, so that's something to absolutely look out for, is making sure that you're getting a dog that can breathe half decently. That's if you plan on taking it to the park, plan on going for walks with it. If it's not 50 degrees out, 75 degrees or hotter, and you're working that dog a little bit, if they're not a good breather, it could end pretty bad. Especially when it gets about 85 degrees out, 90 degrees, that's hot to try to cool a dog down. So you have to be careful of that breathing, and it could be a limiting factor for the Bulldogs. Rottweilers, you don't really see any problem with their breathing. Try to make sure that you get a puppy from a breeder that genetic tests their dogs from the diseases that they can carry. For Rottweilers, it's the JLPP usually. Hopefully they're clear of that. And for American Bulldogs, it's usually ichthyosis or ick. And most of the time, breeders do a good job of clearing all those things if they're a reputable breeder. Any dog can develop bad hips or elbows, and just do your research when it comes to preventing that, and just making sure that the parents have good hips and elbows. But the Bulldogs can be subject to some type of skin irritants way more easily than Rottweilers can. They can bump up, and they're more prone to allergies. So mostly the all-white Bulldogs, or mostly white Bulldogs, are more prone to skin issues, so keep that in mind when picking a Bulldog. When it comes to shedding, I think Rottweilers are better shedders than American Bulldogs. American Bulldogs blow coat, and that hair gets everywhere. But with the Rottweilers, it's a little bit more steady throughout the year. Certain seasons, they're going to blow a little bit more hair, but I think the Rottweilers are a little bit more of a moderate shedder than the American Bulldogs. But if you get a performance type, I think their coat is a little bit better. Like Goose, for an example, his coat is tighter and shorter, and it's not that soft, fluffy coat like a lot of the bully dogs have. So I think he's a better shedder than, the bullier dogs. So to give you an overall comparison of the breed, you have to look at your lifestyle and what you have and what kind of dog that you want. If you're single with no kids and you want a more serious guard dog, I would recommend the Rottweiler. If you have kids and you want a serious guard dog, I would just make sure that you get the Rottweiler from very good bloodlines and a good breeder, reputable breeder. If you're looking for a more chill dog, a more relaxed dog with some guarding instincts, could be more of a visual deterrent, American Bulldogs would be great for that. If you want a dog that has more energy, that you might be able to hike with and work with and train and have a good time with, you know, maybe a standard American Bulldog would be great for you, because I think they're a little bit more eager to learn than a Rottweiler is. I think a Rottweiler is probably a little bit more stubborn, even though they can be great working dogs as well, hands down. But if you are somewhere in the middle and you want a dog that can do some tasks, but you don't want a crazy serious guard dog, you know, a bulldog might be a better fit for you. It just depends on what you like. A visual appearance is a high point of attraction for a dog. Of course, you want your dog to look good. If you didn't think these dogs looked good, I'm sure you wouldn't even be interested in getting either of these breeds. But of course, you have to be physically attracted to the dog to want to own it. Now, the further step to guaranteeing that you get a good dog and a dog that pleases your lifestyle is asking yourself how active of a person you are, how assertive you can be when it comes to training your dogs, and if you have kids or not. Like I said, Rottweilers can make great family pets, and I guarantee people who are watching this are saying, oh, my Rottweiler is great with my kids. Mine is too. I'm just saying that I think that you have a higher chance of getting a Rottweiler that isn't so good with kids than you do with the Bulldog. But I think for the most part, either breeds would be great for a family, great with kids. So for you, it just depends on the physical look of the dog, which one you prefer, and how active of a household you are and how serious of a guard dog you want. All of them, both breeds can do some mixture of all those categories. It just depends which category you lean heavier towards. So with that being said, if you have any comments or questions about either breed, please drop a comment. I guarantee you I'll respond to it. But other than that, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.